everyone. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming this evening to the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting on Monday, October 7th, 2024 at 7:01. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, roll call.
Thank you. Linehan?
Here.
Counselor Page?
Here.
Counselor Kendall?
Here.
Counselor Sheldon?
Present.
Counselor Smith?
Here.
Counselor Papin?
Here.
Thank you. And Counselor Martinez is excused this evening.
Thank you, Lori. Consent agenda, we have 4 items that we are looking to approve. Approval of the October 7th agenda, approval of September 12th special session minutes, approval of September 16th minutes, and the approval of October 1st special session minutes. Are there any corrections to be considered? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Number 11 on the consent agenda has a slight typo. On it says benefits, it says before it. So
On where?
under number 11, what is this? Or is number 949? I mean, the right use in the verbiage. As a typo.
Any other corrections to the content? Hearing none, all those in favor, could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda with changes noted. I'll second.
We have a first and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Item 6 is the time that is public comment. This is the time that we wish the public to speak on items not on the agenda. Anyone here at Jessie Mays wishing to speak on something that is not on the agenda? Let the record show that no one here at Jessie Mays wishes to speak during public comment. Is there anyone online with their hand raised?
No, there isn't.
Okay, Lori, have we received any public comment prior to the meeting in writing via email?
We have not.
Okay. Right, moving on. All right, item number 7 is ordinance, second reading of ordinance of number 495, updating the rights of way requirements. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we'll be having a second reading and adoption of ordinance 495, updating rights of way use requirements. And with us tonight is our city attorney, Nancy Werner. And I'm going to ask her to give a very brief report and then open it for any questions from the council. So with that, Nancy.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I don't have much of a report. This is second reading. This was approved at the last meeting on first reading. It is the updates to Chapter 51 to create a utility neutral ordinance that would require utilities that want to use the city's rights of way to obtain a license from the city once their existing franchise agreement has expired, if they have one. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to go into more detail. But as I said, this is second reading. So just let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions for okay. Nancy, thank you very much for your work. Really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this process and to better understand what we are doing to make this topic and this issue and this need so much more efficient here in our community. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'll stick around because I'm going to talk to you about the fee resolution and one of the next items as well. So, but thank you very much.
Absolutely. Council, your wish?
I move to do the second reading of ordinance 495 by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Ordinance number 495 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of North Plains, Oregon, amending municipal code to update and modify the rights-of-way management provisions. All right, now I need a motion to adopt ordinance number 495.
I move to adopt ordinance 495.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right, thank you very much. Moving on, resolution number 2279 is adopting the right-of-way license fee. Rob, I'll start with you.
All right, Nancy, any further comments you wish to add?
Yeah, I'll just briefly go through this because we didn't talk about it in much detail at the last meeting. We have talked about it in work sessions before, but the ordinance you just passed, as I mentioned, sets up this right-of-way ordinance with a license structure. Because licenses are not negotiated agreements, what the council needs to do is set the right-of-way use and access fees by resolution. Normally, in the past, these have been negotiated in your franchise agreements. But again, they need to be now set by the council rather than negotiated. We set the fee structure out in the resolution. The fee rates, the percentages are the same as the existing franchise agreements. So it should not be a significant change it shouldn't be a change for current franchisees who are providing the services that are authorized under their franchises. As I think I've mentioned in a past meeting, it's possible there are entities that are using the city's rights of way and did not get a franchise agreement. So we might capture some new providers this way. But otherwise, we don't expect this to necessarily bring in a significant amount of revenue unless there's some companies out there operating that the city is unaware of. I just want to briefly mention, as I've mentioned before, this fee structure has two components to it and they offset each other. So there are two fees, but nobody would pay both. You'd really pay the greater of them. So nobody's going to pay both. There's a right-of-way use fee, which is a fee that is imposed on the entity that owns facilities in the rights of way. So those would be your existing franchisees. And there's a right-of-way access fee. That is a fee that is charged to an entity that, whether or not they own the facility. So if an entity provides utility services in the city, as we've defined it in the ordinance 495, they would be subject to the same fee as the facility owner. But again, there's an offset. So if you own the facilities and you provide the services, you don't pay two fees, you pay the greater of, and they're probably the same fee. So you would just pay your 5% fee, just like the franchisees do now. The reason we do this, I know it sounds kind of a little bit convoluted, but there's a couple of reasons to do this. One is we want to make sure that an entity that owns facilities doesn't use an affiliate to provide the services. So where the fee is 5% of gross revenues, the owner could say, I don't have any revenue. My affiliate does, so we want to make sure that we're not setting up a structure where someone could easily avoid the fee. And kind of on a comparable note, we want to have a level playing field as best we can. And so there are some entities that don't own facilities that use third-party facilities to provide their services. And we want to make sure that those companies are subject to the same fees as the utility owners, because when they compete, that way they both have the same fees. So that's why we have these two fee structures. And again, they offset, so nobody pays the use fee and the access fee. It really is, we call it the greater of, but in actuality, it'd probably be one or the other for most companies. So I hope I haven't confused you more. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
So that seems pretty simple. My other question is, this may affect some businesses. Have we identified any that it will affect? Do we know that this is something that's happening, or is it something that just has a loose end?
I'm not aware of any businesses this would impact. It could, though, as you said, if there is a business that is currently receiving, let's say, telecommunication services from a company that doesn't own the facilities they use to provide those services, that company would be subject to the right-of-way access fee of 5%. And so that could get passed through to a company if that's happening. I don't know I don't know that we have any information one way or another on that potential.
How would we know? How would we know? if we're using it?
That might be a question for staff. Would,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nancy, for jumping in. Would that be a question for staff?
Staff, how would we capture someone's using it?
Mayor, Nancy, I'll go ahead and answer. I should probably run for office because I'm going to give you a yes and a no. Likely what will happen is I've been involved with negotiating over the last 30 years, dozens of franchise agreements, and you don't always know if somebody is operating in your city. Most have a sign on their trucks, some don't, because they might hire a third party to lay the cable or put the cable on poles. But eventually you find them, people either call and complain to City Hall and you say, well, gosh, Mrs. Jones, as far as I know, they're not operating in the city. Well, I'll bring the bill over to you, something like that, and you find them. It's usually by accident, or if there's a change of ownership. There's a small company that's operated for multiple years here in the county. Their name was Wave. Well, this past, I think 2 years, 3 years ago, they sold to another company, a larger company, and they just kept the trucks on the road. And I saw them recently when I was heading out to Forest Grove on business, and I didn't realize they were using the same trucks. I mean, that's how you find out many times if there's a quiet provider, and it is what it is. And then when you find them, you just make a friendly call and see if they're willing to talk about it.
And Rob, may I add more to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's a provision in the ordinance that asks entities to disclose who is using their facilities. They may not do that even though we've asked them to, because sometimes there's confidentiality agreements. But the other thing that we can do is, particularly for communications companies, they will have to get a certificate of authority from the Public Utility Commission. And there is a list of all of the certificated providers, and we can even look at which ones are allowed to provide services in North Plains and simply send them all notice. Anybody who is authority, it doesn't mean they're actually operating there, but you can just send, kind of a mass letter out to any company that is authorized and say, hey, we have this new code. If you are providing services in our city, you need to comply. And that is what a lot of cities have done. It's pretty easy, a little bit time consuming to get those addresses out of the PUC, but it's not too bad. And it's a decent way to at least try to notify everybody who might be impacted.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Good question.
So the next question is, if they just ignore it, what happens? You get something in?
There are penalty provisions in the ordinance. So, but to Rob's point, they can ignore it. And if we don't know they have a customer in town, then we don't know they're ignoring it. So there are some potential hurdles to enforcement. But if we know someone is providing service in the city and they are not following the code, there are penalty provisions that you can impose. And then for fees, interest as well for late payments.
There's a way to track them.
Yeah, I just gotta figure out whether there's, I guess I don't have to, because the city manager has to figure out whether there's an ROI to do that or not for the time spent versus the $5 you get. So, yeah.
Sure, yeah. And I'm
Mayor,
not so sure that we even have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Mayor, Nancy, I wasn't aware of that information, and so what I'd probably do is reach out and ask how difficult it was to get addresses. Look at the list, see if there's anybody that's not complying, but we're not going to make their life miserable, because your point about ROI or return on investment is very real. And if you're chasing a few people down a black hole, there isn't time to respond to phone calls or do something else that's important for the city.
Any other questions or comments for Nancy? Councilor Papen, want to make sure that we hear you, see you, if you have any questions for Nancy?
No questions. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Sheldon?
No, we covered this pretty
Okay.
extensively in the work session, so.
All right. All right. So what's the direction, council?
I'll do it. I'd like to approve resolution 2279 to amend the citywide schedule of fees and charges to add rights of way, use fees, and rights of way access fees pursuant to amended MPMC Chapter 51.
All right, we have a first, do I have a second?
I'll say,
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right, thank you. All right, on to our, nothing under our unfinished business listing, on to new business. The city manager employment contract. So I want to thank everybody, like everyone who had a part in this, a conversation in this, work in this, who showed up and actually came in and the residents who showed up, who came in and met the applicants, the 4 candidates, which was applicants, which is great. Thankful and grateful for city staff who sort of coordinated all of everything, right? Appreciate council showing up, appreciate our partners in various cities with the technical group and the city manager group and TVF&R group, and also with staff. So this is definitely, I've had the experience of doing this a few times, trying to find city managers for our community a few times. And I know it is definitely an orchestrated event for the entire team. And you put in long hours and overtime probably. And so, but it doesn't go unnoticed. It's an important job that we need to fill, an important position that we need to fill. And I just want to let you know how grateful I am for that time that you helped us navigate this, especially you, Rob, coming out of retirement and helping us get this all squared away. So really, again, thank you for doing that. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to you for a little bit more introduction to it, process, where we are, and then see if council has any questions.
Right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to thank you too for your support through this. I have been through it before, not only as a candidate, but managing, replacing a city manager. And I also would be remiss if I didn't thank Bob Larson with GMP Consultants of Washington. They provided a great framework for us and good direction. And we ended up with 4 strong finalists, very different skills, but the council has discussed a candidate tonight. I think you'll be acknowledging that. But Mayor, in an email earlier today, you had asked for a bit of if I would give a recap to what the process was, and I'd be happy to. Actually, it was a fun process and it really energized City Hall. And there wasn't a waking or a sleeping moment without either having a dream about the process or it just being in the front of the table, but it was mostly fun. So it's beginning back when it was announced that Andy was leaving and Andy left, I was hired and came in May 20th. And got a nice reception from staff and we jumped right into this. And the position profile was reviewed and approved by the city council in a regular public meeting, including receiving some public input about the process. And the idea was that we would be open and transparent, and folks took some good interest in the process. And the actual process itself, we started on September 30th, what was called a meet and greet right here in this room. And give or take 40, 45 residents showed up. The 4 candidates were here. And folks had immediate belly-to-belly contact with them and had the chance to talk with them, ask questions, just see what they were like. And the council well engaged the 4 candidates, and the candidates reciprocated. It was actually nice to see the kind of collegiality and the respect that was shown between the citizens and the candidates. And the next night, actually the next day on October 1st, there were 3 panels that interviewed the 4 finalists. It was the mayor and council. I facilitated a group of 4 city managers here from this county and a manager from Walton Valley Fire and Rescue. And the consultant provided a set of questions for each group. The 3rd group was employees, and we picked people from each of the divisions of the city, and they got provided questions too and did just that. They talked, and each candidate had about an hour interview process, and they rotated all day. And at the end of the day, the council met in executive session, talked about the candidates, and then came out of executive session and discontinued the meeting. But there was full communication between these committees and the candidates. And then the council accepted input from the police chief, who was the organizer of the committee of employees. I met with the city managers and the manager from Walton Valley Fire and Rescue, and we shared what we learned from each of the committees with the council. And then tonight will announce a preferred candidate, and if whoever the candidate is, they'll vote that person as the person they wish to hire, and then we'll go into, the mayor will be authorized by the council, if they so do it, and I think they will, to negotiate with the person that they're designating as their desired candidate. And then 2 weeks from now at the council meeting, the contract and the candidate will come forward, and the council will or accept the contract or modify it, whatever they choose to do. But it'll be a very public process to finish it up. And I think it was a good process, and I was very happy with the work that PMG did and GMB, and was happy with all the support they gave too. So it was a big process, but you don't get through something like this without it being a big process and being open with folks. So I think it succeeded. And what I would recommend, Mayor, if you want to announce the candidate and then give the public an opportunity to comment if they would like, then you could make a motion after announcing the candidate. And I don't know if it'd be you or the council president, but people could then comment about the person that you're designating as a preferred candidate.
Sure. Before we do that, Bob, I know you're online. Bob Larson, you're online from GMP, and I just want to personally thank you for your guidance and direction during this process. We could not do this process without professional experts like you and your staff. And I just want to say how grateful I am that you helped guide us through this process to find the best that we could for North Plains. So I didn't know if you want to interject a little bit about, and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Lenahan and council members and the audience, public members of the public. Yes, on behalf of GMP, it was a pleasure and a great distinction of honor to be able to serve you folks. I really enjoyed it. I think from the first days I met you, you may recall, I used the term you were salt of the earth type folks. I think we hit it off quite well. And I could tell right away that the interest in this position obviously was pretty high and pretty strong. But working with you folks was a delight for us. And I mentioned that in our group meeting this morning with my colleagues. I thank them all in advance of tonight, obviously, but I'll certainly pass that along. We have a strong group of colleagues that work with us directly, folks that are behind the scenes that you probably never have met. But we had, from the folks who designed the position profile to our owner, Greg Prothman, as well as our key staff who help folks like me take care of the business, if you will. Without them, we couldn't get this job done. But it's a collective effort, and of course, in partnership with folks like you, it just makes our job quite a bit easier, thankfully. And I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing with the city of North Plains as you work on this next steps. And I'm here to help and support you in any way I can. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, really, your partnership was instrumental in getting us to this point, because I don't think that we could have done it without you. I know that for many of us are full-time employees somewhere else. And this is our volunteer gig. So we rely on experts like yourself. So again, thank you so much for your time and guidance through this process. I didn't know if councilors had a few words before we identify our candidate.
This was a pretty long process. It started at 8:30 in the morning and went close to 8 o'clock at night. So a 12-hour process of interviewing people, asking clear questions. We had 3 teams, actually 4 teams, the recruit as well. All give inputs. There was a lot into this process. And then after the special session, we had a lot of answering back and forth. I'm happy to be part of it. That's something a lot of us don't get to do. I mean, a lot of us are, employees elsewhere, but few times do we get to make a decision about a manager that's going to be pretty much quarterbacking for the city. It's a pretty important decision, and I'm thankful for being involved because it's bigger than any one of us. So I want to thank the entire team for doing this.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Remember hired the first city council back in, I think it was 1998, and we did that just with about 5 or 6 of us, and this is the best process ever. With the fire, I think we've had since 1998. I think this is number 5. Lately would be short time. It was great. Best ever.
Good. Councilor Payton?
I just want to say thank you for everyone's hard work and dedication. I know there was a lot of long hours and planning that went into this. And I especially want to say thank you to Bob and your team as well. And I'm excited for the future.
Mr. Smith? Anything? You don't have to, I'm just, you
I'm
know me,
not
I
sure
never
if
call
I'm
out
saying
anybody.
anything or not. We took this seriously, very seriously, and we kind of had debates back and forth, and I think we all came to consensus. Not saying like it was unanimous, so that's very important. You have a city council that you work together and work things out and work as a team. And I think we did a great job working as a team to get this process done.
I want to correct you though. It wasn't unanimous at first. It was not unanimous at first. It took discussion.
At the end, it was.
At the end, we had consensus, but you're right. But we had some really great conversations and
Correct.
good discussion about this. It was hard. It was a hard one. It was hard. Yeah. Councilor Sheldon, anything you want to add?
Well, I'll just say, Bob, I appreciate the professional approach, the cadence of the process, the vetting of the candidates. We had a lot of good people to choose from, and then our final selections sifted through those to the top. So I can certainly appreciate it. It's a process that's a little more cumbersome than some people might realize, but it's an important process, and I appreciate all of our dedication in terms of leaving our jobs, taking a full day away from our jobs or our family. And I think that's an important part to recognize and remember.
All right, do we know what our next step is?
We need to discuss with the manager is
We-
the chosen one. The person that we chose, the chosen one. The one that we chose, and we have the public ask questions.
We definitely need to, you have basically a sample motion in front of you, but
We do
we,
that now.
you can do it now.
This for the city, for the council president to do, or is it the announcement?
I would like the city council president to do this.
I think anyone.
you to the council president.
Mayor,
Yes,
may I suggest you either make a motion and not vote and invite the public to,
I thought we do that during discussion.
okay,
Like if we have a motion on the table in a second,
okay.
then we can have discussion then, or would you?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, just
that's
so
what I was gonna
that
do.
if people wanted to comment and there was something we didn't know about, for example,
Uh-huh.
give you a chance to not have to make a formal vote and take it back, basically. So that would work great.
Okay, so I guess in a way then, maybe we could almost have two motions here. One to move the city council to appoint X, this person to be the next city manager, and then we have discussion and we vote on it. And then the second motion would be to authorize the mayor to do the negotiation part. Instead of making them, instead of making it one, it sounds like it could be two.
Sure.
Okay, does that make sense?
That's nice.
Well, okay.
I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to comment.
Yeah, and Council Papen, are you okay with that as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone,
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do it, because we've been fooling around with this long enough as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna go ahead and move to take our preferred candidate and see that the council appoints Bill Reed as our next city manager.
all right. Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, we have a motion by Counselor Sheldon, seconded by Counselor Phage to appoint Bill Reed as our next city manager. Any discussion? All right, at this time, I'm going to open it up to any folks here in Jesse Mays. Do you have any comments, any feedback that you'd like to share? Like to voice your opinion about anything? I've got thumbs up.
He's still
he
exhausted.
said he's still into it, so I'm not sure about this.
No, yes, no, we're good here. All right, I want to turn then to our online folks and make sure that you have an opportunity to give any kind of feedback or an opinion about our choice. Staff, do you see any hands raised? I can't really tell from my vantage point.
I can't, and I am smiling, it's just tracking all this is, it takes more attention than you realize.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Russ, you want to go?
Going once, going twice. Three. All right, we have a first, and this is the first by Counselor Sheldon, seconded by Counselor Page. No discussion, and no comment, as noted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right. Now, the second motion that I'm looking for is a motion to authorize the mayor to negotiate on behalf of the city council contract with Mr. Reed and to bring back a draft contract to the October 21st city council meeting for discussion and approval.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Counselor Sheldon, seconded by Counselor Kendall. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right, thank you very much. You're very welcome. Do you have a word? Do you wanna?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. First off, I want to assure everybody who came tonight to understand that the whole process was exhausting. For all the candidates who went through all the finalists who went through all the interviews with the different panels and all the questions, they were GMP and Bob Larson put together extremely probing questions and really forced a lot of thinking and somehow think my answers ended up resonating or giving information that indicated that I could be a part of moving things forward for the city and helping council kind of move things in good direction. So I've been here almost 5 years and it's been fantastic. The city is growing rapidly and figuring out what to do best for its residents and its visitors. And I look forward to being a part of continuing that tradition that you've moved forward doing that for your residents. So thank you.
And Bill, I think your position as finance director is really pivotal for this continued, because finance is at the center of everything. Due to his job as being finance director, he touched every department we have. So he already has a pretty good feel of how the city is going and where it's headed. So I feel really good about this.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, moving on to city manager reports. Rob?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, a lot of my time the last few weeks has been spent on the city manager search, also helping with the RAC or the relook committee and the potential boundary expansion, the discussion process. Down the line, the Citizen Advisory Committee will make a recommendation to the council at some point down the road, a few months down the road. And that's been eating up a lot of time and basically just doing what we do every day, answering phones and pushing people in one direction or another that aren't sure where to go, or if they need help, or they have a problem and they need fixing. Overall, we've had a good, it's just been a few weeks, but we've had a good period here. It's sort of energized the city. It's nice seeing so many folks coming out. And with that, we don't have most of the other department heads here tonight, so we won't have reports from them. But the relook committee did meet last Thursday. We had a good turnout of the members and a good initial discussion, some background information to help folks better understand on the committee. The majority of that committee has not served before, so there was a lot of education. And so that folks know, there is a page that's dedicated on the website that will have meeting information, future dates on it, minutes from the meeting, just about anything related to the relook committee. The members' names are on there, so you know who they are. And that's about it that I would have to report in terms of what's been going on. Happy to answer any questions
Councilor
if I
Sheldon?
can.
My question is about the relook committee. Can you give me a sense on how many people participated? I mean, are citizens? Because they're calling for engagement. I want to know how many people were there roughly. I'm not looking for an exact number. So no attended. I expect there to be like 50 people there.
There weren't 50 people, Councilor Sheldon, but I expect a lot more at future meetings.
Okay.
And there was a lot of regurgitation of old information, which doesn't dismiss the importance of it, but you add a new audience in the committee members. And so I think virtually most of the committee members showed up. One was actually online. He was in, I think, Arizona for a family funeral, but he even committed to that and spent time away from the funeral gathering for his family. We had one person testify, and I would expect a lot more. We're going to be making a lot of noise in the next few weeks to get people to schedule, invite people to come. Anybody can participate who wants, whether they live in the city or outside the city. We're welcoming different modes of thinking and modes of support if they like something that they see too.
I just have feedback just on the connection, on making sure that the links are, you know, to these meetings are functional during the meeting. There were some folks that I saw chatter online. They're like, hey, the link's not working. And so during the meeting, I was like just chatting. I was trying to solve a problem.
Yes.
And cut and paste a meeting over to my mayor page. And so some people were actually able to go over to my mayor page and click on the link and then get in. So just want to give that feedback just to make sure we can double, triple check, just to make sure that links are working. I know, you know, we've been challenged a little bit with technology, but this is really important. And I know that you all do a really, you know, a good job at trying to make sure that everything is working properly and everyone's connected, but I just wanted to provide that feedback.
Thank
So
you.
that we have that, and that we will, for those listening, know that we are addressing that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, good.
Has there been any change? Hillsborough just took some land. Has there been any discussion about how that generally works? Because land, like Mark Twain said, they're making more of it. And people have kids, and that they want their kids to go up in North Plains, but there's no how, right? And then they have kids and so forth. Is there any talk about how somebody else could use the land and we have no say in it at all? Is that part of the discussion at all, or is it, how does that work?
Well, Councilor Page, if I understand your question, the focus on the relook is actually within reasonable or potential target areas for North Plains. And I think what you folks heard, and I heard the same message, that the initial process may have taken, my words, too big a bite. And so in listening to the criticism and the comments, I think your response was appropriate, that you're calling a new committee in, which we've assembled, and that there will be a broader look at and trying to invite more people in so that people will feel it was fair, whatever you choose in the end. And this is not criticism, it's simply comment. But if you chose to propose something smaller and that succeeded and most people thought it was a good idea, there will be a time period that if it happens, I think you know as well as I that the process of bringing land in, there's a second step after this. If you draw X line on the map around the city, the next process, the way it works, because this is a city outside the urban growth boundary, the metro urban growth boundary, it's a two-step process. You draw a line in the first process. Second process, you look at visioning, proposing, mulling over what should go within those lines between the current boundary and the new line, and where should there be housing, where should there be retail, roadways, etc. And the bigger, more cranial process, I mean, the best way to describe it, will be the second step, because that's where people vision, people propose things, etc. And so This is not a short-term process, it's more long-term. And anyone who has a concern about, gosh, this committee could end up making a decision by December or January, that's simply a recommendation that goes to the council and planning commission and is mulled over again about not only the line, but the second step would be what goes within the line. In some ways, that's a more exciting process because you're talking about where parks would go, where this would go, where that would go, and deciding what kind of housing you need. And it's something that we I come from inside the urban growth boundary, and we went through that over the last 30 years in my case. And it's never a dull moment when you're trying to figure what's next.
Mhm.
And it's a partnership between property owners, businesses, and the government and governments, because you're served by many people, whether you're here or in Beaverton or Hillsborough.
I'm just worried because 800 acres, like, we're gonna double that, it's crazy talk, right? By scale, but Hillsborough takes us of that same thing, it's only 5%, tiny bit, squeaky, you know?
Yeah.
And whatever it is gonna take, we have no discussion, no input, or that 5% is a small amount they're gonna take, relatively to what we wanna claim, purview over. So I'm just worried about that, I'm just worried about, are numbers, if you understand numbers, and this is gonna explain the background to it, just that D1 acres is not that, it's how do you want this thing to look going forward? Is that, I'm just asking about that.
You're referring to Hillsborough then?
Yes, and Hillsborough is at
Well,
15,283 acres.
So what, I guess, what's the impact of Hillsborough's choices on North Plains? Like,
Alright.
how did their choices
Right.
impact us? Is what I'm
I mean, that because the thing was that it was too big by like a percentage, double, right? But we're small compared to something else as big as loud.
Sure.
Right?
sure,
And
but
then looks at I, and we're Mellon.
yeah, but
hold
and the
on.
reality is
Yeah.
that they're coming this way.
I live in the Bay Area, and there's a town called Newark, and Fremont engulfed it. So they're a small island, and they had nothing, they couldn't do anything. Because everything was, nobody wanted to go to that town. So like, yeah, I was wondering, do we talk about numbers like that, or how does it, when you're talking to the committee, how is that? What is the talking process?
well, the committee's initial charge is to make a recommendation to you, the city council, where should we grow next? And after X number of months, the committee will produce some kind of recommendation, then you and the planning commission will mull it over. What happens in Hillsborough, an interesting dichotomy, but it's within the metro area urban growth boundary. Metro is the decider of that. Here, it's not Metro, it's the state that will decide, and in partnership with the county, because we're in Washington County and they get a say too. And what has recently been proposed, I think it's about 100 acres of land for future growth, and the governor via the legislature was given authority to cite a future electronics site under state law. And theoretically, the governor could come in here to North Plains and say this land right outside the city could be a future electronics company. But what they do and what we do is somewhat independent, because Metro dictates what happens in their boundary, and the state, we're outside the boundary. What's odd about it is if you had a pretty good arm and you could pitch a baseball 9,500 miles per hour, you could probably do the same thing with a rock, and from the edge of North Plains, reach the edge of Hillsborough, or even land the rock in Hillsborough. And so I think what's confusing for folks, and maybe just general public, is how are we treated so differently? And again, I'm coming from the outside recently, although I've been working in this county and city government for 30 years. It's just a different starting point. But in the end, you're developing a new community or additional community in either city. I mean, it's an interesting process, it's complex, and if you need anything, you need patience for it to try and get the right answer.
And it's really super important to note that we do not have the same process as Metro.
No,
We
not
do
at all.
not have the same process as Hillsborough, Forest Grove, Cornelius, Beaverton, King City, Sherwood. Who am I missing? Like
Pretty close to all
Tualatin, Tiger. We do not have the same process as those cities that are within the boundary of Metro.
of them, yes.
Banks and North Plains are different processes than those. And so I think it's really important to make that distinction as well, right? Because they think that some folks see that and say, well, you know, you've got a plan for every square inch. Where are you gonna put this? Where are you gonna put this? Where are you gonna put this, and this, and this, right? That's not what North Plains and Banks can do. That's what Metro, that's extra layer of government that everybody just loves, right? They're the ones that says, hey, this is what you have to do on top of everything that the state mandates you to do or requires you to do, or whatever word you want to use instead of require or mandate. So, but it's really important to know that North Plains and Banks don't have to follow that layer of government, that process. And so when we look at our urban growth boundary expansion, we are just looking at how do we want to extend the boundary? Like I even asked the group the other night, remember that your task is just to redefine the line. Your task for the RAC is not to figure out where you're gonna put roads and parks and schools and all this other kind of stuff. It's just, where do we go? And one of the concerning, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, because one of the concerning issues is Hillsborough, they're coming this way. And it's very possible that one day in the future, maybe our lifetimes or not, they could potentially come and engulf North Plains. And they could make it part of their jurisdiction. And that's something that we're working at preventing.
Like Reedville, Lemco, Tannismore, those got all on go.
Yeah.
And they come in Tannismore like a bull.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that, and my job on the RAC is I'm gonna do a lot of listening. I wanna hear what everyone else has to say. And I'm just gonna sit there and listen and support this group, this body, but also just be a listener and to really hopefully hear what folks have to say. Any other thoughts or comments, questions here? Councilor Papin, I want to make sure you.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I do see we have a hand up for Aaron Hockett.
Yes. My question was for Rob. Rob, I was just curious, given the discussion around Senate Bill 4, procedurally, will there be any additional barriers or encumbrances to basically the relook committee in regards to what's happening with the Hillsborough land in parallel with what's happening with the relook committee?
Can you give me an idea where you think you want to go with this idea?
Yeah. So the idea is process and procedure, right? So order of operations. Relook committee is going to be established. There's going to be discussion around it. Once that is proposed, the city council and citizens will be moving towards a agreement that then has to assuming be passed to Washington County, and then Washington County needs to submit that to the state of Oregon. I'm just trying to figure out in the scheme of things, based on things hearing in the news, with the governor potentially expanding land in Hillsborough, is that going to be subject to a first in, first out type of request based on the timeline of the relook committee? Meaning, is there going to be a prioritization of that to Metro, Washington County, and then the state of Oregon?
If, Aaron, if we may, Bill has some comment that is probably timely and relevant.
Okay.
Aaron, hey, Bill Reed, Finance Director here. So thank you for your question. So procedurally and legally both for the city of North Plains and specifically the ReLook Committee, what the governor has proposed with the city of Hillsborough in amending the Portland Metro UGB, as has been discussed and will be a hearing in Hillsborough later this week. That is, for all intents and purposes, irrelevant to what the city of North Plains ReLook Committee is doing. The city itself, with this ReLook Committee, is re-exploring a new urban growth boundary line somewhere based on what the state requires of it with the documents and process that we've done to date. And what the governor does with Senate Bill 4 power with the city of Hillsborough, it's a topic for conversation, and the city of North Plains, certainly in determining its urban growth boundary, needs to decide where its UGB should expand and for what reasons. But all of that over there is unprecedented process that the city of North Plains has nothing to do with. And really, this city has to just determine its own future, looking into the future on its own. It can factor in what type of growth or development might occur where the governor is proposing this over in Hillsborough, because we're not that far away. And the city of North Plains is even closer to Hillsborough if that goes through. But our process here is completely independent, procedurally and legally.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? Any questions here, like in just ways? Yeah, Mr. Glenn, just want to make sure that. No question? Okay. Good. All right. City manager report, you're good? You're done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Council reports.
I'm
So,
sorry,
go ahead.
it's not a report, but next Thursday is the chili cook-off. Just want to remind people.
Mhm.
Are you gonna sign up?
Huh?
How do people sign up?
There's 21, entrance. Yes, and I heard, I'm not sure if she's filled the spot, but they were looking for another judge. Council Page or.
I think that's me.
Okay.
Because I'm very judgy. No?
So I told the boss.
You told the boss, you got
I
it?
would take it, because
Okay,
usually
good.
I pass out, but
Okay,
this time I'll take a seat.
all right, you good? All right. Any other council reports?
Yeah, I will. This last Friday and Saturday, I was invited to participate in the Spalding Valley Fire and Rescue Citizens Academy. Basically, what they do is they want to take policymakers, and show them what they do. So they say, oh yeah, funding is there because you guys are running ragged. Look how busy you guys are. I didn't quite go at that in North Plains. They stationed me here in North Plains, and I went to bed at 8:30 and watched Jeopardy with everybody. And woke up at 6. So there's no calls at all. And that is a testament to this council. No, North Plains was very lucky in that regard. Some of the other guys were run ragged, and the plan was to run me ragged and have me all blurry-eyed in the morning. Didn't work out for them, which is nice. But the fire department runs with a crew of 4 people to just about everything. We went out to the pie guy to get some pies with 4 guys. So it's a pretty good time for us. However, something I did notice for everybody that was involved, and we got to try to figure this out a little bit better. 911 was called for a lot of different reasons. Somebody was constipated, not North Plains, but they're constipated, so they called 911 and they rolled out a crew of 4, keep them in the big truck to suggest they drink some more water, you know? So we need to figure out a way to understand that 911 comes, they come hard with everything. It's expensive to do that kind of stuff. So we should have something like community outreach, so like, what is appropriate for 911? And maybe we could get some other lines that are more appropriate for other emergencies. Maybe whatever happens, right? Somebody in North Plains, I was told, had a hard time turning the road off, so they called 911. And the fire went out there. They're nice guys. They were supposed to. Well, they were free time, so they helped out with the others. But I like to see some kind of reach out of what is 911 appropriate and not, because terrible if something were to happen and people were used up for something that was not quite, you know, required a crew of 4 highly trained professionals, and they did great. So, anyways, I had a great night's sleep, and I like that North Plains is that kind of a town where you know, the fire department gets some good sleep. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Councilor Piven, anything for you to report?
No council reports, but I will for the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, it looks like you're on board for the Parks and Recreation. Okay. I attended the Economic Development Commission meeting, and that's always a pleasure to visit with that group. They are continuing their ongoing discussions about working with the Chamber of Commerce and then doing business survey outreaches. One thing that they decided that they would like to do is to move forward. They're going to move forward with a survey to the businesses in the community. And then we'll work with the chamber they want to get the boots on the ground. They're ready to work. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and go door to door and talk to our businesses. So they're going to work on that and get that all organized. I think at their next meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, next meeting, I think they're going to see a draft of something to go out to the communities, the business community survey, like, you know, by Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas time. That's their hope, is to get that out there by then. So they're also this is great. They're putting together a quarterly city council report. We might have talked about that before. But they are actually going to, they're doing this themselves. They're going to put together a report every quarter and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we've done. This is what we're doing. This is what we're aspiring to. And they will, each one of them will come to the council almost like an ex officio and take that time and then give us a report on what they are actually doing in their commission. So I think that's really a great opportunity for them to stay involved and get involved, to hear from them. And I would certainly encourage the other boards and commissions maybe to consider something on that same vein. I think that would be really awesome. So I'm getting shake heads
Parks and Rec is
from our staff,
yeah, they
so.
discussed that, so,
Yeah.
Next.
yes.
Parks and Rec is next. That's awesome. That's awesome. The planning commission meeting this month, I was also supposed to be there, but they canceled this month, but
They canceled next Wednesdays, but they
Wednesday.
scheduled a special meeting on the 23rd after you guys have had your work session on the 21st.
Correct. Okay.
Yes. And that was for noticing timeline and stuff for whatever they're addressing at that special meeting. They needed enough time to get it publicly noticed.
Okay.
And that's why they had to move the regular meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. And then some of my, had a meeting this afternoon with the mayors and the Washington County Chair. Every month we have, we call it the Mayors Plus One. So it's Washington County Mayors and the Washington County Chair. And she basically comes together with the mayors in Washington County, gives us an update on what they're working on. And just it was fairly uneventful. We talked a lot actually about housing. And it was heavy on Metro conversation today about Metro and their housing, and what they're looking at for their housing issues. So again, the city of North Plains and the city of Banks are not in Metro, and, these meetings sometimes are really heavy Metro and not a whole lot for us to really interject in, but it's still a really it's a great opportunity for us to be at the table and to hear this, and then to participate in the conversation and have our voice heard if we have any questions or concerns. And then, let's see. What else did I do? Just looking here. No. That's about it. My regular meetings coming up at the next Monday is the Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting, which I will be chairing. I'm the co-chair, but I will be chairing that because the chair will be out on vacation. And then, yeah, that's about it for me. Any council reports here? Councilor Sheldon? Nothing? Okay. All right. All right, well, I think that's just about it. That's a wrap. And if there's nothing else, going once, going twice. All right, I will go ahead and close our meeting then this evening at 8:07. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.